Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration. And it's Friday morning, July the 14th, 7 o'clock here in the morning, just waking up, having a coffee, and I hope you're having a good morning so far. Thanks, everybody, for being here, for tuning into the shows, and I hope that, they're helping you, and hopefully they're somewhat helpful in your journey. I know they're helping me to stay focused on things I need to work on. So that's why I'm doing this show. Just looking really at a morning reflection of how am I doing, what I need to work on, and for self-care, coping mechanisms, just any information that I find helpful. So we're just continuing on here, and you want to make sure that you're safe enough to be listening. If you're a survivor of abuse, you want to do a safety checklist, really. Make sure you're safe enough to be listening. And if you don't know how to get that information, there's a couple places. Havoca.org, H-A-V-O-C-A, Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse.org. They have a section on safety, as well as ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse and More Center program. They've got a Survivor to Thriver workbook, and you want to make sure it's actually free. You can grab it online, just read it right there, or you can download it or whatever. And make sure you're safe enough to be listening, right? You don't want to be triggered and then go backward in your healing journey. That's not good. So any type of material like this, or anybody's abuse, information and whatnot can trigger survivors of abuse. So you want to make sure you're safe enough to be listening. And if you're not safe enough, you're not sure you're safe enough, just turn the show off. You won't be hurting my feelings. Go get that information and, make sure that you're safe, right? Everybody else listen at your own discretion, really. I'm talking about abuse and the aftermath of abuse, and it's just very sensitive information, very sensitive subject, really. So make sure you're listening at your own discretion. So, thanks, everybody, for being here, and we'll just get right into this. We left off on Monday. We're looking at, it's Havoca, H-A-V-O-C-A, Havoca.org, a particular section that we're looking at, which is, it's under the Survivor tab, under feelings. And they're looking at thinking ways, toxic sort of ways that because of the abuse that people have suffered, or I may have suffered, or anybody may have suffered, our thinking has been, I guess maybe you want to say warped or something. It's not healthy, right? It's quite often like we were looking at here. We might be thinking and remembering back to something that someone told us. Could have been, doesn't matter if it was a parent or, a caregiver, so whoever, a teacher, a neighbor, anybody might have said something to us that caused us, that wounded us, and we may have actually believed it, and actually then later on as an adult sit there and recall it, and then recall this faulty thinking, believing what they said, something like, well, I'm a loser, or, I'm never going to make it, I'm just worthless, I'm useless, right? This is the kind of stuff that I deal with, and any time I have anything going on in my life where it seems like it's just not going right, or I have not really kind of done what I was supposed to do, and so then I'm kind of running around trying to fix things that I've sort of messed up, then I think my thinking goes immediately back to the fact that, I'm just a loser, I'm worthless, I'm useless, I'm never going to make it, and that's because of it was ingrained in my brain really from childhood, and so this is sort of information they're talking about that. So we left off on Monday looking at the rest of the should statements, and we're going to pick up. I'm going to skip the awfulizing statements and the have statements. You can go grab that if you want to. I want to look at the human worth statements. This is the section that's coming up in this part. That's actually the thinking section of this feelings that they're talking about. And we'll just. And I want to sort of check where I'm at. How am I feeling this morning? I sort of skipped that. You could ask yourself this stuff. We can ask ourselves, how am I feeling? How am I doing on my healing journey? How am I feeling? Get in touch with our feelings. It's important, right? People are usually pretty busy, and I know myself, I quite often just don't stop and take the time to actually think, about how I'm feeling, how I'm doing on my healing journey. So that's why I like to do this show. And this week's been kind of, I don't know, it's been busy, actually. I really had no time to do much of anything actually. So I didn't get to work on any of my stuff that I was going to. So now this is going on, 3 weeks in a row, 4 weeks in a row where haven't been able to work on any of my workbooks or stuff that I'm working on to work through for my healing journey. So it's just busy right now. That's okay. But I'm feeling pretty good. I haven't had a whole lot of flashbacks. Haven't had a whole lot of obtrusive memories or obtrusive, negative thoughts coming around. I'm actually feeling pretty good. I'm just tired, and so that's probably my biggest problem. But the weekend's coming, so thankfully, I'm going to try to get some rest and try to maybe one day on the weekend there, whether Saturday or Sunday, do some work in my workbooks and actually get started in that stuff again because it's important. I don't want to put that off too long, and try to stay on track. But these things happen, right? People get busy, and sometimes we don't have a lot of time to work on stuff. But it's just a matter of keeping track and getting back at it, whatever you're working on. So I'm feeling pretty good this morning. So it hasn't been all that bad of a week. So, but this is sort of the thing where we can get in touch with how we're doing and how we're feeling. I think that's important, and because then I'll be able to see whether or not am I experiencing more flashbacks and what might be the issue, what might be triggering these, what might be and sort of deal with it then, or am I just experiencing more depression or more type anxiety type stuff. Actually it's been a pretty good week as far as anxiety goes. I haven't had really any serious issues coming up this week, so it's been pretty decent. I hope your week has been too. So we'll get into this. I want to look at human worth statements from Hovoka.org, and they said here, human worth statements are based upon the faulty belief that we have the godlike status to rate human beings, ourselves, and others. They are also based upon an error of logic, which goes like this. Quote unquote, since I, or you, have done a lousy thing, I am, or you are, a completely lousy person. or try this one. Since I have made some mistakes, I am one huge mistake. So they said the logic of this kind of thinking means that if I have a pimple on my nose, then I am, as a person, one complete pimple. This person has pretty good sense of humor here writing this stuff. It means that if my behavior has some blemishes, then all of my behavior is blemished. And I am a blemish. Because I haven't handled everything in my life perfectly, does that make me a complete washout as a person? And human worth statements sometimes act as filters. Non-blemishing evidence is filtered out and ignored. For example, I am a loser, quote unquote. In truth, there is no such thing as a loser. So all of us lose at some things some of the time, but never all of the time. So destructive self-worth statements are often tied in with I perfect, be perfect, right? Thinking, which is equally loony. By now you have begun to realize how much mental pollution there is in our world. And mental pollution is rampant in some circles. It's out of control. So the fashion industry, for example, really counts upon the rest of us making absurd human worth statements to ourselves. For instance, if your body or wardrobe doesn't conform to their standards, then you're definitely a substandard human. That's true. How about the messages from TV commercials? If I drink a certain brand of virile beer or drive a virile car, then I will never be impotent. Good grief. So I like what they have to say here. So this is sort of stuff that we would, we might say, like, this is very, it's just very faulty thinking. They list some examples. I got to have the approval of the main people in my life all the time. I got to do most things well, or I'm no good. Next up, I can't stand it unless things go the way I want most of the time. Life must be fair to me most of the time. Anyone who treats another person unfairly is a complete worthless person. If I can't depend on others, then I can't be happy and life is horrible. And human value can be rated. And I am at the mercy of past experiences. There is no way out of this trap. I cannot change the way I feel. It all depends on what happens to me. And when other people are unhappy, I can't be happy. If I don't spend a lot of time fussing over problems, I will never be able to solve them. I have to be perfect in my efforts to solve my problems. Next up, I can't stand it when other people don't see things the way I do. And then walking away from problems is easier and is less work than facing them. And it's possible to have a perfect relationship. Those are all really faulty beliefs, like I have to have the approval of the main people in my life all the time. we're never going to get the approval of all the people in our life all the time. Just like, it's just not going to happen. Just, nobody gets the approval of everybody in their life all the time, right? I have to do most things well or I'm no good. This is what people sometimes will believe, because just depending on what happened in their, to form those thought processes, whatever the person went through, in their lifetime that caused them to feel this way or to think this way, right? And I can't stand it unless things go the way I want most of the time. So just having to have our way all the time, right? Life must be fair to me most of the time. It's not going to be fair to most of us anytime. Anyone who treats another person unfairly is a completely worthless person. This is an area that I have a struggle in completely, because I really have a problem with injustice, and I hate seeing people treated unfairly, and it's not just even myself, obviously that I'm included in there, but excuse me. I may be at the top of the list on that one. But the thing is just looking around at what's going on around the world, because I do look at so much of this, so much horrific stuff all the time with what I'm doing. And then just knowing, we can't wake up one day, every single day, without knowing that there's just a lot of horrific stuff going on the planet. So, anyone who treats another person unfairly is a completely worthless person. I actually feel that that's not faulty thinking. So that's my opinion on that one. People should not, if everybody would stop treating people unfairly and being so horrific to people, we wouldn't have the problems that we have on this earth, right? So I don't agree with that one. I think that's totally an actual good belief there. That I actually not going to drop that one, because I don't agree with people treating people unfairly. So if I say, oh, that's a faulty belief there, no. It's just, yeah. What are you supposed to say? That somebody who's out there raping children, just like, see so many articles, especially this last week, I saw several articles out there. And even up here where I'm from in Canada, where this 19-year-old male kidnapped a young girl. He took her into the woods and sexually assaulted her. But he let her go. He didn't kill her, which is great. But the thing is he let her go. She wandered to a farm and got help. But the thing is, that child will live for a lifetime of woundedness because of that, and they did bust this 19-year-old male sexual perpetrator. But the thing is, do I say that, just because somebody does something like that, are they completely a worthless person? Absolutely. How could you even justify by saying, oh, he just made a mistake? It's like, no. It's just like my parents, let's just get into the abuse stuff here, this is what we're talking about. Avoca is a help for adult victims of child abuse. I can't justify what my parents did. Does it mean that because my parents were my abusers that, oh, they just made a mistake and they weren't completely worthless, It's like, no, they were completely worthless, because they ruined their families' lives and they ruined their children's lives. And, I can't, so I don't agree with what they've said there. I don't always agree with everything I'm looking at. Some of it makes sense and some of it just doesn't. That's, no, to me, that's not right. They shouldn't have even included that one in there, because that's not a faulty thinking situation. You see people treating people really unfairly. I would say unfairly, what does that mean? People taking advantage of people? That's wrong. People exploiting people? Someone exploiting people, whether it's a boss or a parent or a caregiver, that's just wrong. What are we talking about? Someone who treats another person unfairly. Abuse, domestic violence situations where someone in the family is abusing the other partner. That's treating someone unfairly. That's wrong, see. So does it mean they're a completely worthless person? Absolutely, in my mind. Because abusers are really hard to... I don't think abusers actually really ever change their spots, to be honest with you, even with rehabilitation and stuff like that. Abusive people are just who they are. And it's like if they have it in their mind that they could do something like that and hurt a child or hurt their partner or hurt people around them, their neighbors, people killing people all the time or beating up people, assaulting people, people getting charged with assault and battery and all kinds of stuff. This world is full of sick people, So I mean, I would say anybody who treats another person unfairly is a completely worthless person. I would say, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even here in Calgary last year, we had, or a couple of years ago now, maybe it was about a year and a half ago, we had a guy who killed this woman and took her daughter and killed her too. And they haven't really given too many details because it's still going to court and all this, right? He's guilty. They did bust him. But the thing is, there hasn't been any details about what happened to that poor little girl. But anyway, he killed her, and so he killed the mother and the daughter. He just lives here in Calgary, right? I mean, is that a good person that would do something like that? Or is that a completely worthless person? Now, the person's parents, who's still, if they're still living, or their brothers and sisters, if they're still around, of that criminal who killed that woman and that child, I mean, they may feel differently. They might think, oh, well, he just had problems. It's like, no, he's a completely worthless person. You know what I mean? So it's like people want to say, like, because my mother was my main abuser, but people loved her. She was nice to them. See, so she treated them very well. And she treated other people very well, neighbors and friends and stuff. But she abused me, and she abused some of her siblings, some of her sons and daughters. I wouldn't say all of them. One of my sisters actually kind of escaped all that because she just sort of was invisible in the house and actually wasn't around much. But the rest of us, we all grew up in this horrific mess. And so many people would say, oh, your mother was just lovely and she was just hurting and you just have to forgive her for her behavior. Well, her behavior almost killed me. So, several times. Could have killed me, you know what I mean? Does that mean that that's okay? We just have to just forgive and forget and move on and it's okay what she did. No, it's not okay. It's not okay for anyone to treat anybody else unfairly or horrifically. So I actually totally disagree with what they said there. So we'll move on to the next one. If I can't depend on others, excuse me. If I can't depend on others, then I can't be happy and life is horrible. Now I think that's a faulty belief for sure. We have to learn how to depend on ourselves because we really can't depend on others. If you live on the planet long enough, you figure it out that you really can't depend on others. Especially for happiness, right? Because happiness has to come from within. If it doesn't come from within, it's coming from an external source that's just going to fade away. So we have to find something else within us that actually makes us happy. Otherwise, life will be horrible. Because no one's going to be able to do that for us, right? So we can't, I like what they said there. If you can't depend on others, then I can't be happy and life's horrible. We can't really depend on others, even good people, because people just can't do all that for us, you know what I mean? They can't even do it for themselves. So how could they do it for somebody else? And I used to kind of wish that before, especially before I started my healing journey, that somebody else could just take away my pain. I was like, if I just had a friend or, somebody in my life, because it's not like I was really alone, sitting on a tropical island somewhere, or in some sort of a cave somewhere, isolated. I had people around me, and even a few good friends, but I just wish that, I had somebody in my life who could take away my pain and help me to feel better and to get better, right? And I didn't, until I started my healing journey, I didn't realize it was going to have to be me to do that. There wasn't going to be anybody else in my life who could possibly do that for me. So, yeah, I agree what they have to say there. Human value can be rated. Human value can be rated. So, in other words, does somebody deserve basically to be treated with dignity, and how can we value that? They say it can be rated. Well, yeah, even these murderers, do they deserve? How would we rate somebody who's abused somebody in any way? How do we rate somebody who's a horrific murdering monster? Where's their human value? Well, to me, it's like your human rights are taken away when you violate other human people's human rights, right? So people who murder children and, stuff like that and abuse children, abusing children is really kind of, to me, is the same as murdering a child because they're going to have to live the rest of their life in a hell situation, in a death hell situation. So abusers, we're supposed to just treat them with the same human value rating as we would somebody else. I wouldn't say, I think abuse is wrong, so I don't think it's right then to abuse somebody else, even though I wish that they could. All abusers would have to suffer a lifetime of eternity of what they've done to somebody else. especially to children, right? But the thing is I'm also a person who believes that people should be treated with dignity, and that we all have this human value that we all rate. We all matter, like I always say, you do matter, you do count. Am I speaking to people who are murderers and abusers and horrific child sexual predators? And not really. I'm talking about people who are living on the earth that aren't going around hurting people. You know what I mean? It's a real sick situation. I mean, how do we come to terms with this stuff? The next one up is, I am at the mercy of past experiences. There's no way out of this trap. I cannot change the way I feel. It all depends on what happens to me. That's an interesting one for survivors of abuse, for sure, because I think a lot of people are right there most of the time. At the mercy of past experiences, there's no way out of the trap. I cannot change the way I feel. And it all depends on what happens to me. That's really quite interesting. That's a big one. So, yeah, I mean, this is kind of where I was at when I started my healing journey, really, was there's no way out of this trap. There's no way out of this pain is really what it was. Looking at it as far as being an abuse survivor wasn't necessarily a trap. It was there's no way out of this pain, the pain from my past, right? And I cannot change the way I feel. It all depends on what happens to me. I actually started to realize that I needed to change the way that I saw things, especially myself. And that's as far as this. I mean, I believe that this is pretty interesting for this faulty belief situation here, because until I started to look at things differently, I mean, I was just this victim, And 10 years ago, when I started my healing journey, actually more like 8, because I really did the bulk of it, like right around 2009, started doing the work. So 2009, 2010, 2011, right in there. I started to change the way I felt about myself, and I thought, no, I didn't deserve any of that. No, but no child does. Nobody does. And how do I feel about myself? I started to have to change the way that I felt about myself. But it doesn't change the past. It doesn't change my past experiences. And so, I can never go back. Who can change the past? You can't change the past. The past is done. It's done. What's done is done. Now what I have to do is learn how to deal with it, cope with it, and maintain. Because certain times in my life I've coped quite well, other times not so well, and I need to get on a level plane, of learning how to cope, learning how to sort of maintain, like maintenance of my life, And so, and there's ways to do it, but it's not easy. It's taken me a long time, I don't think this stuff can happen overnight, because it's not fixable. I mean, if you go out and get on a bunch of meds or pills, or that doesn't fix it. If you go to psychotherapy, you go to some sort of therapist. I mean, it's great to get help, but the thing is that doesn't even fix it, because it takes time to be able to process this stuff and to be able to make it work and last, stick, right? So when something's going wrong, I'm not running back to the situation of, I can't get out of this pain, and it's just becoming so down that I just want to end my life. I just want it to be over, right? So I have to change the way that I deal with things, and change the way that I'm coping, and because obviously it wasn't working. So the whole idea is to find out what works, and then learn how to use it to maintain under all the different situations that come up, whether it's stuff that's triggered us or things just aren't going right, so we just start to go back to those old ways of thinking and feeling and the old ways of coping, which were not working, right? So interesting. So we'll pick up the rest of this article here on Monday. You can go read it. Just go to Havoca, HAVOCA.org, and it's actually quite lengthy article. Go to Information for Survivor tab, and then under Feelings, look for the section called Thinking. And under that one would be, that's the section. It's called Thinking. And this is Human Worth Statements. So you can go ahead and and continue on there, because there's a lot more material. But we'll look at the rest of it on Monday. So positive reinforcement, we can look at what are we doing right in our daily walk here, looking at positives instead of just negatives. I didn't do this and I didn't do that, so I must be a loser. I must be an idiot. Well, I quite often feel that way just, because I'm not perfect. You know what I mean? And sometimes I let things go, and I have to be a little bit hard on myself. Thing is that it's too easy to get down on ourselves, especially survivors of abuse. So what am I doing right in my daily walk? Well, I'm trying to be good to myself, trying to get some, make sure I get rest, take care of myself. I'm working on that. Right? It's just a hard job for me really, because I'm actually so busy most of the time. Because my husband's terminally ill and I really don't have much time. But I do try to incorporate something in there, for self-care, right, throughout the day, and try to remember, I need to take care of myself. I needed to keep on this journey here and not just put it off, right? So I think that's a positive situation. I'm still working on it. It's slow progress, but at least I'm still working on it. I got it. We're getting up. We're doing this. We're doing it. We're getting up every morning. And some days are not going to be good, and we're not going to let that get us down. I think that's another positive, Sometimes things just don't work out, and some days are better than others, But it's not always going to be great, And as abuse survivors, I think we really just long for something good, something good in our lives. We want good things in our lives. I think we don't want any more bad stuff, So it's kind of like, it's frustrating when things aren't going well. It's just kind of, but that's just life, though, and we need to learn how to deal and cope with it. And so sometimes, lately what I've been doing is just learning to sit with my pain, and I think that's a positive, because I'm actually allowing myself to recognize that that's what I'm doing, instead of pushing it away or pushing it down or moving on to something else and thinking about something else. I'm actually allowing myself to sit in my pain, just allow myself to sit there, because that's helping me to actually level out, instead of spiraling downward or becoming too I don't know what you want to call it, just too traumatized from the past. Just allowing myself to sit there and realize that I can do this. I'm absolutely strong enough to do this. So I think that's a positive. We can find all kinds of positive things that we're doing, instead of just looking at the negatives. Just whatever it is, make sure you do, recognize these things for yourself. Because it's too easy to get down on ourselves and be disappointed with ourselves and something that, is just not working out for us, So make sure that we got to make sure that there's some positive stuff in there too, right? And well, I want to look at, there's Havoka Top Tips. This is getting started affirmations, because I want to start doing some more affirmations, but I wanted to look at this first. And they had a visualization, what people can do, reminders. You can place affirmations just anywhere. You can put them on a mirror, they were saying, so that when you're getting ready for work, you can look at them or whatever. You can, they said, call your answering machine, leave affirmation messages for yourself or someone else. Leave an affirmation tape in your home, or like now, I guess it would be a CD or an MP3. But they're talking about cassette tapes here. Set your computer up to send automated affirmations to your work, timed intervals. Mail yourself or a friend some affirmations in the mail. These are just ideas that they had. They're kind of cute. For the most part, I just think that we just have to start learning how to think more positively about ourselves, and to see ourselves in a different light, especially as survivors of abuse, Sometimes I quite often sit around and I think, God, I'm just ugly, but that's how I see myself, this wounded, ugly thing, that people didn't treat properly when I was little, and then of course as an adult, I feel ugly. You know what I mean? I'm a child abuse. I'm a CSA, child sexual abuse survivor, and I struggle with all of this stuff. So for me, what I do is I just try to remember that no, I'm just me, and I love myself, and I do care about myself, and I did not deserve that. Neither did you, right? And so we have to then see ourselves as we truly are, a survivor, and I matter and I count just as much as the next guy, and we have to learn how to see ourselves differently. And I think that's what a lot of this affirmation stuff kind of helps us do that. So I do like looking into it. So we have about a minute left here. That's about all. So we'll have to pick up the rest of this on Monday. And I wish you a really good weekend. I hope you just take care of yourself. If you're struggling, having a hard time, you can't cope, because I know I've been there. You do something. You call a crisis line. I'm telling you. You get some help. Do not struggle on your own. Do not allow yourself to be destroyed by your past and by the abuse. No way. We deserve to win. We deserve to win this battle. We did not deserve to be abused. No one does, right? So then why would we allow ourselves to be destroyed by the abuse and by the abusers from our past, right? That's not right, because that means they win. So what you have to do is you have to stick it out. If you're listening to me and you're struggling and you don't know how you're going to cope, sometimes, I don't trust a one-on-one, so I never wanted to get a counselor or a therapist. I went anonymous help online survivor websites where you could just join anonymously. And that was very helpful because I could talk to people who knew where I had been and where I was coming from, and I didn't have to feel the pressure of somebody going, "Are you really sure? You shouldn't be feeling this way." Trying to convince me of what I just went through and what I've been through and how I should be feeling, right? And so get some help. There are some trustworthy stuff out there. You just have to look around. If you can't cope, I'm telling you, you call a crisis line. Whatever you do this weekend, you take care of yourself. You be good to yourself, be good to those around you. And, I wish you a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. Bye-bye.
Smart Wi-Fi 150 from Shaw Business is our smartest business internet ever. It has our fastest speeds, smart. It has 3 dedicated connections to keep your work network separate from guests, smart. And it has insightful reports and a custom welcome page, double smart. It even has a smart radio voice.
Aw, thanks for the introduction.
Actually, I was talking about me.
Huh. Power your business with Smart Wi-Fi 150. Details at shawbusiness.ca.
But she's good too.